Hello, New Hope family. Welcome to the Grow Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Strunz, and I'm thrilled to have Pastor Aaron with me today. We're dedicated to helping you take your next step in your relationship with Jesus. Thank you for joining us.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Grow Podcast. My name is Hattie. I'm one of the pastors on here at New Hope. You don't see us often on the podcast, so hello. Good to be with you.
Hello.
Also, we have Whitney here.
Hey.
Welcome to your first ever on the Grow Podcast.
Yep.
How do you feel about it?
So nervous.
Yeah.
Yep.
We had just had a little bit of a pep talk before starting.
Yes. We did. Just how to get the shivers out.
Yeah. But we're ready to go.
We got this.
Yeah, we're ready to go. One, because we're going to be talking about baptism. So normally you would see Adam and Pastor Aaron on the podcast going deeper into the Sunday message. This Sunday, if you were around our New Hope campus, it was Baptism Sunday.
Yes, it was.
And so we're mixing things up a little bit on the Grow Podcast. And we get an opportunity just to share a little bit about baptisms and what God does through baptism and how he uses that to encourage the church.
And what we see and what we experience being the discipleship team.
Yes.
And watching these people go through this process a little bit more one-on-one with them sometimes, I think. So, this is good.
Yes. So we hope you're along for the journey. So Whitney, you are newer on the discipleship team. So Whitney and I make up the discipleship team at New Hope. Share a little bit about your role, because not many people probably have seen you on the Grow Podcast or on stage.
Right.
We forced you into the podcast to do announcements. You said
no, absolutely not announcements.
On a Sunday morning.
Podcast room is pretty safe.
Okay.
Definitely had to take the big dog, sending the big dog in to ask me, Pastor Aaron, and asked me, and I was like, okay, I guess I gotta do the things.
So they might see you on the podcast occasionally, never on announcements.
Never on announcements. I'm good, guys.
So just since a lot of our people won't know you or might not know you yet, to share a little bit about your role at New Hope, kind of how you ended up here.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so my story kind of starts with VBS Kids. A few years ago, I decided to serve there. My kids are big servers in New Hope Kids. You may notice Taylor and Nevaeh are always back there helping out with that. So I decided to take that step and start helping with VBS Summers. It was just VBS at that time. And Andrea approached me and asked me to be the New Hope Kids coordinator, so I started there. So you guys might recognize me from wrangling the children.
Which you're great at.
And I was offered the director position, and I turned it down. I didn't think that was my calling. I felt like my calling was more helping people grow in their faith and in their journey. So then I was approached by Hattie to come and join her team in discipleship. And I'm just loving it, getting to personally know the people in our church, and I really want people to feel like they're at home when they come to New Hope. Mm-hmm. And I want them to feel God's house. I want them to feel like they're part of His family and His children, for sure. And then let's see, now what I do with discipleship, I help with classes. I help Hattie with the things that she needs, and I get to be part of Baptism Sunday, which is a big thing for me. It's really awesome.
The best Sunday.
Yeah,
Christmas and Easter are fantastic. They're great, but man, there's
Baptism Sundays. It's like a new day. Mm-hmm. You really feel like something's just being born on that day.
Yeah, you said it's kind of like birthing a child.
It's like birthing a child. It's like, oh my gosh, a baby's coming.
Yeah, that's great.
It's so exciting.
I love that description. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you've been around New Hope for a while and started just by saying yes to serving in kids ministry. Yeah. Did you ever imagine you'd be doing like ministry as a paid position? And kind of how has God worked in your heart in that way?
Actually, I've always kind of wanted to do the things. I just never knew how to get there. And so I think being approached by Andrea was such a big moment for me, as far as like someone saw that potential in me. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to be that person. I have a lady that I've met back in Corvallis, Montana, and I always said she oozed Jesus, and I want to ooze Jesus.
That's good. I like it.
And so, but being in ministry, I never thought that I'd be there. I never thought I'd be one to teach people, but I definitely have a passion for it. And so I think it's awesome that I think it's being witness to people when people are asking me to be a part of their teams and ministering to people. I think that's definitely the Holy Spirit being shining through.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to ever dull that light. So
Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
I think one thing, just to like who you are, is you'll say yes, even if you're like, you'll say it, like, she'll say it just like that, like,
Well, I guess I have to.
exactly, yeah. Like, Lord, if you're in this, like, I'll say yes, and
I'll say yes.
and I'll know how it will go, and it might not be perfect, and
Yep.
there might be some stumbles, but
It might be a little messy.
yeah,
And he's there for my mess.
he's open for a mess.
He's
Yeah.
up- he's
If
there
he
for
wasn't,
mess.
we would all be in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But that's one thing I really appreciate about you, and I think that we all just like need more of that. It's just like being willing to say like, yes, Lord,
Yes.
and like, how will you help me?
Mm-hmm.
You jumped into a lot of things in the past few weeks, and you're like, all right,
All right, let's just do
let's
this.
try it. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So we had baptisms on Sunday. Yeah, it was an incredible Sunday. If you didn't get a chance, for those of you watching with us right now, to watch those testimonies, they're all on our YouTube channel. We'd love to encourage you to go back and watch those.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, something kind of cool is that we didn't really have this baptism Sunday in our normal like schedule or normal routine.
Right.
But we've seen a lot of people come to the Lord this last year. Are like,
So it was needed.
yeah, it was needed.
It was needed, or else we'd have 30 or 40 the next time we got there.
Yeah.
So we had to take a break and do the God's work.
Yeah.
And baptize these people so they can share their stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so 15 people who said yes, and they said like, I want to proclaim what God has done in my life. I want to proclaim that the old is gone, I've been made new.
Yeah.
And we did it on Mother's Day.
Yes.
And didn't really know what that would look like. Not having a like Mother's Day backdrop like we normally do and celebrating moms like we normally do. But man, I think just sharing testimony on Mother's Day was really cool.
Absolutely. And I think that we had siblings going, that was like their Mother's Day gift to their mom, was proclaiming their faith and doing it publicly, which I thought was so beautiful. And then we had the two moms and their daughters getting baptized was such a beautiful thing. And I think that like what I was telling you, it's like a child being born. What better day to celebrate that than on a Mother's Day of like us women becoming moms and knowing knowing what that joy brings of having these gifts. I think it was really fitting for me.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it so thoroughly.
Yes. To see like 15 people say like yes or that.
Yes, God, I'm in it.
Yeah.
I'm here.
And there's someone's kids, and
Yeah.
those parents got to watch
And those
that.
parents got to watch their beautiful blessings be born again and be, publicly showing their faith. It's so huge. And even though it's so nerve-wracking and so scary,
Yes.
it's so scary. Yeah. But having that just being done and over with is what an awesome thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just witness.
You said it was so scary, and
Oh,
you
so
had
scary.
you just were baptized, so not this Sunday, but our last baptism Sunday in March.
Yes.
So share why that was an important step for you to take as an adult. And you had been baptized previously
As a child.
Yeah. So just kind of share like what led to that, like what led to not just you, but
My daughter.
yeah,
Yeah.
your husband.
And my husband.
You all did it together.
So what started there was my daughter coming up to me and saying, Mom, I'm ready to be baptized. And I was like, girl, I know you're ready. Like, you know the Lord. And then it kind of really made me take a reality check and like kind of really look down into me. I'm like, Whitney, this is something that you have not been obedient. And I've been a Christian for 16 years. And honestly, the enemy was using that to shame me into thinking that my story didn't matter. And so that was kind of something that me and my husband had wrestled with for years, because we were born again about the same time, because it was right after our first son was born. And so that's why it became such a moment. And also being part of discipleship and teaching people to be baptism and how important it is, as far as like your story matters, your testimony counts.
Yeah.
And then also just not letting the enemy have that foothold in your life anymore.
Yeah.
that's why it mattered so much to me. But yeah, it was very intimidating, very scary, as far as the fact of I had to let go of my human scaredness and count on God to allow me to be vulnerable, because I have walls up because of past hurts. And so knowing that God had me, even though I was a little nervous and a little scared, like the relief after I came up out of that water was gone. Like that, it just was overflowing with joy of I did it. I'm proclaiming God as my Savior and no longer have that doubt or insecurity of, am I going to get, it's not even that I didn't know if I was going to get into heaven. It was just like, no, I did it. The enemy can't hold this over my head anymore. And the breath of fresh air that was so good.
And then like overcoming that fear you talked about. That was like a fear for you.
It was a fear for me, as far as like sharing things that were a little scary. I didn't want my my son's a big part of that testimony, and I didn't want him to think that who I was back then. But he knows that person's gone. This person is here. God is still working on me. I'm still constantly trying to grow closer to him, right? But yeah, that's, I think, the most significant part is just realizing that each little bit of our story matters to someone. So I don't want to like jump ahead a couple questions.
It's okay.
That's kind of where I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. That is all really good. And I think people need to hear that, because we hear testimonies of people overcoming like drug addictions and other types of addictions, or like we heard someone on Sunday talk about how like the Lord had healed them from crazy pain. Like we hear those testimonies and think like, man, like my story's not like that. Like I've known God for most of my life, so like who am I to like share my testimony? Or there might be a fear of like, well, what I did was really terrible. I don't want to share that in front of it.
It's really messy.
Yes. But I think all of that is, like you said, the enemy just like using fear to stop us from taking stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that your family decided that day, like, no more. I'm done. Yeah, we're done. Yeah, that's incredible. And we will talk a little bit more about testimonies and just like the importance of sharing, because what we hear on Baptism Sunday, they're like, oh, it's so good. Like every time we hear every time we hear the stories are so good and so different, but what is consistent is just how faithful God is. Everybody's stories, you just hear it like weaved into everybody's stories, even though they are so different. And I always leave those Sundays like just like on cloud nine, like
absolutely,
God, like you did that, and like I see what you're doing, and like you're so faithful, and you're still moving, and you're still active in people's lives, and like even now I like leave convicted sometimes of like I want more of you in my life. Like these people are experiencing you. And like I mentioned before, if you haven't watched those testimonies, like go back on YouTube.
And then you'll hear, like, for sure.
Yes. So our church family, they get to see the actual baptisms and they get to watch the testimonies, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Leading up to the actual baptism. So what's something that people don't realize happens behind the scene on a Sunday morning or leading up to baptism?
Leading up to baptism, you never know what condition the baptismal is going to be in.
That's very true.
Hattie had a little visitor in the baptismal as far as an 8-legged spider.
That's pretty cool.
And she got to squish it.
And took care of it.
And get him out of there and clean it up. So that's one thing that happens.
Weird prep work.
We get the rugs laid out, a lot of taping. But also you get to read these testimonies that are coming in. And you see all the emails coming in, and it's like, that's a person on each number of these certificates that I print out. And like reading all these testimonies, you're just like, wow, look at how God is moving in this thing. And then when it comes to Sunday morning, you see excitement, you see scared, you see nervous, you see people jumping around because they can't control themselves.
That is all true.
And it's like, okay, we got this. And being part of the baptism team, you get to help calm those nerves. I seen one of our girls praying before she went on stage, and that was so good to see that. Like, she just was really clinging on to God. And that moment of just like, I'm nervous, I don't know what this, and she just prayed and went out there and was baptized, and it was so good to just see her just that right before. I'm like, I just need your peace right now. And he was there. And then also, I think seeing on Sunday mornings, you get it, like when I go out into the lobby and I see everyone pouring out, the support that the church family has for these people who just did this public proclamation, like, it's so beautiful. Seeing all the hugs and the handshakes and people who never had interactions with each other before. I had many people come up and say, wow, congratulations, I love your story, I appreciate your sharing your story. Like, that is such encouragement to just know that this is a family dynamic that we're trying to establish at New Hope, that it's God's family working.
Which is exactly why we get all the time people like call in or they email and ask like, hey, I want to be baptized, but I don't know how to do it on Sunday morning. Like, I'm nervous about that. And which is all justified.
It's all good feelings.
But then they miss that. They miss the people in the lobby encouraging them and praying for them.
And seeing God work through those people's hearts.
Yeah.
Too, God's like, oh, you're going to need encouragement because I know you're nervous.
Yeah.
Here's 10 people coming to encourage you that you've never known before.
That they wouldn't get if it was just them.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's a public proclamation.
Yeah. And then they get to also, can we touch on Chris and Kat for a minute?
Yeah.
So with Chris and Kat's baptism, the last Sunday, their testimonies was so moving to a woman, Rachel, and she decided right then she needed to be baptized. And it was like, oh my gosh, we've got another one. This is so good. This is so amazing. And we were all rushing to get back set in place so that way we could do this with her. And Chris and Kat just stood there so faithfully to just help her, even though she didn't have anyone there. I can imagine how scary that was to not have this pre-recording of your testimony, but have it live, but also having these people that you have no idea who they are, but through their testimonies you had connection, and so you're able to just have them stay by your side and cheer you on through this. Was so good.
It was. That was one of my favorite things. It was
so moving.
So just seeing the church family and how it should be on that day. That's how it
shines.
Yeah, for sure. That's how the family should be. Yeah. I want to talk about testimonies a little bit, which you shared a little bit of yours. We touched on it. So on the baptism Sunday, like a huge part is going under the water. Obviously, I call it getting dunked.
Yes.
Yeah, we dunk them.
Yeah.
Which is great. But people share their testimonies, and they have an opportunity to sit down and think through like, what has God done in my life? Like, how has he been evident? How has he been working? And in those testimonies, like, definitely a faith builder for that person. Like, for you had to overcome some fear of like standing on stage and going to being vulnerable in front of people. But I think there's so much growth that happens for that person as they like reflect on what God is doing in their life, and as they take that step of faith, as they step outside of fear and say, I'm going to do this anyways. And when you were sharing, like, I just brought back kind of like full circle, like you had some fear going into your baptism. I'm going to do it anyways. And now you get to tell people who are being baptized, like, hey, I was right there. Yeah, I get it.
I get this feeling, and it's going to be gone.
Yeah. Which is exactly how God uses like trials, hard things in our lives, like,
to grow us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's like one of the beautiful things about testimonies. In Revelation, it says like they will overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And like that's how we see new people come to faith all the time. They hear people's stories of like, God, you're real. And like, I know you're powerful. I know you can do a lot because you did it in their life. Like,
you can do big things.
Yeah, you can do it in my life too. And so it's always a joy to hear people's stories. It's always a joy to hear just what God can bring people through, just like really heavy, super dark things.
No matter how messy it is.
Yeah.
Like the messiest. And I know like PH had, he had,
that's one of our church classes.
Yes. Pastor Leo got to baptize one of his attendees, and his amazing story and testimony, we're all such big messes, but man, God can make so many beautiful things out of those messes. So that's been so good to witness and watch those things.
Yeah, but we have to admit to the mess sometimes.
So people have to admit to the mess.
We're messy. Yes.
Yes. Because I think it gets into that human connection. And then I think it's like, oh, wow, okay, this person can see me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they still love me.
And they still love me.
And they're still cheering me on
Yes.
and praying for me after service.
Yeah.
And also, like, the power in testimony is for the people who hear it, for the people on a Sunday morning who get to hear that testimony, just seeing God working, and getting to encourage the people who are being baptized as they hear those stories.
Yeah.
So it's not just for the person who's baptized, it's for our whole church family.
Absolutely.
Growth and edification as they get to share their stories and hear stories. Why do you think God uses personal stories so powerfully to reach others? Like, why is it the personal story that matters?
I think I kind of mentioned this a little earlier, of just like that human connection that we all have. Like, we all have hurt that we experience in some way or another. And I think that it helps break down walls in other people when they can hear the brokenness in some people. And I think that it just helps you realize, like, we're all real, we're all messy, and God's still here for us, no matter what that looks like. And I think that it just helps create connection, and I think it helps us realize that we're not alone in our stories.
Yeah. Or in our struggles either.
Yeah, or struggles. Yeah.
It makes me think about a few weeks ago when Pastor Aaron talked about running a series called Fact Check, where we're talking about how the church is perceived versus like how we should be. And we talked about being hypocritical. Well, when you're telling your stories and you're bringing it all, there's not a lot of room left for
I mean, you're laying it out there. And but how awesome is it you get to lay it out there, so that way it can't be a hold on you anymore. You get to break a chain by telling it, is not letting it have control over you anymore,
not keeping it in the dark, to the light,
bringing it to the light.
So our team, you and I, like we talked about, we get to help people take a next step in faith. Baptism is a huge part of that. That's why we're talking about it. But there are people listening that maybe they've been baptized or maybe they've been baptized and they're like, I want to take a next step. Like, I want to go deeper. Like, where can they start?
Where can they start? So if you haven't been baptized yet, I would suggest you take a minute and be quiet. Find that quiet place with God and pray to him, and talk to him about what this means. And then once you've had that conversation with him and you just want to get to know him more, and then you completely surrendered your life to him, like, talk to someone that you know that is a faithful follower of God. And if you don't have those people, let us be your people. Like, contact us.
We'll be your people.
We'll be your people. Like, you can email us or call us at the church. And we would love to help you with that and what that looks like. And then if you have been baptized, I think that also taking a moment to reflect of, like, where are my gifts? Where do I need to share my gifts? If it's on Baptism Sunday, Chris and Kat, I think, have found that calling of they want to be helped with baptisms because of the effect they had on Rachel so much. I think that it's really showing and witnessing to them that they want to be a part of this journey. They want to be part of witnessing people's testimonies and helping them through the baptism part. That can be a little scary.
Yeah, for sure. And they were able to be baptized, and they're like, now I want in. I'm all in, and I love it. And serving is a great part of that. Like, if people who are joining with us and they don't have a place to serve, like, we know community, because when we serve, using God's gifts that he's given us, like being stretched, those are all great next steps and a huge part of why we encourage people to serve. It's not because we need spots filled.
No, it's because we want you to use what God's given you. We want you to be part of this family. We want you to not be alone in anything. And I think that also just helping on Baptism Sundays, we talked about this earlier, is to pray over it.
That's good.
Pray over our the people that are being baptized, praying over their testimonies, praying over people who are watching, that if they've got walls, they get broken down. Also to quiet the enemy, get him out of here. Like, we pray against that and pray protection and peace.
Yeah, sure. So lots of ways people can be a part of what God is. I think us doing. You and I were chuckling earlier, so you talked about Kat and Chris a few times.
Yeah,
a couple. Chris basically just held the curtain back on Sunday, so our people could go in and out of the worship center. And that's a great role to fill.
I think it was a great role to fill. Like, I was kind of like sitting here thinking, like, you know, he's kind of that focal point of like, okay, that's how I get out of here. I'm safe after that, you know, and he's got that curtain held back so that way we know where to go off stage. But even just that little part is so big.
And it might seem silly to some people, like you're signing up to serve and you end up
holding a curtain, but at the same time, like, you're someone's focal point.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, you're safe. That's my safe place. You know, it's like, okay.
Yeah, and like God truly has gifted each of us. I know He's gifted Chris more than just
absolutely. And I think, and like he said, he wants to serve every baptism site after this with his wife, which is so amazing. And he'll find other ways too. But for his first Sunday serving, that was awesome.
And we all have a role, and God can just use us in incredible ways.
As little or big, as they are.
Yeah, we just have to step into it. Take that next step.
Yeah, I gotta help out with Willow. Our little Willow, you know,
little daughter of someone who is niece of someone who is being
baptized, and you know, I think that was helpful of just being able to just comfort her while her grandma and her auntie were doing this proclaiming, and she got to watch it on the TV with her Cheerios, and while mom and dad got to help be a part of that too.
Yeah,
it was so big.
Yeah, that's something we didn't talk about behind the scenes. Is like, not only do we get to hear the testimonies, but we get to hear a lot of like what has gone into that person, like who has poured into them, like who has been praying for them for years and years and years. And I don't know if people realize this, but usually if there's other people in the tank,
it's someone really special to that person who got them to have that relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, which is so cool to have that person be in the tank. And get to baptize them. And so we get to hear all of those parts of theirs.
The connections and the stories.
Yeah.
And then also just seeing that support that we have for each other.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I love asking people in the tank, where's your family?
Yeah. They're like right here.
Yeah. They're right here. Or honestly, occasionally they're like, I don't have anyone here. And that's what we can say.
Well, we're here.
Yeah, we're here. That does happen too. You know, I wish we could have like a secret mic in the tank just to think what people talk about.
Because sometimes I'm sure it's pretty comical.
Yes, this has a nice where it was extra comical. Like, because some of them are very nervous and they don't want to listen to themselves talk, sharing their stories, which I understand. I never like listening to myself talk, so I'm like, okay, I can distract you. One girl, almost as she was like ready to go under, she's like, just drown me.
Just drown me. You're like, oh, easy girl. Just a quick little splash.
Yes, I was cracking up. It was good. It was really good.
Oh yeah, backstage, one of the girls was, oh, can I just jump in? And the girl, no, you probably shouldn't jump. We need to walk in.
Yeah,
like, let's be safe about it.
And we don't want anybody injured on baptism.
And I heard another one saying, oh, I can't swim. How deep is it? Is it deep? It's like, no, you're not going to drown, sweet girl. We got you.
I always get, without fail, after baptism Sunday, I'm not the tallest person in the tank, typically.
Absolutely not.
I always get someone like, we need to get you floaties, or we need to get you a little stool, and they're like, yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah, but what they don't know is like,
she's got muscles. She'll lift you out.
That's right. I got it. We're good. On that note, we should probably wrap up.
Yeah, let's do this.
Or I will start talking about my muscles, and we'll end up on a trail we don't need to be on.
Yeah, one of those rabbit trails that just needs to be covered.
Yes. But one thing for all of us is we do believe that growth really happens with the next step. So maybe for you, it's baptism, or for maybe for you, it's spending that quiet time alone with the Lord and just figuring out, like, okay, God, what is the next step that you want me to take?
Or maybe it's a class.
Yeah,
we've got practicing the way class. Teaching us how to pray.
Yeah, that has been so good. So yeah, whatever it might be, just spend that time with the Lord and ask Him, like, what is the step that you're wanting me to take? And if there's fear in that, that's okay, but take that step anyways.
Yeah.
Do it scared.
Yeah, do it scared.
Yeah.
You can be bold about it.
Yeah. Yep.
He's got you.
That's right. I think we survived. We survived our 30 minutes podcast together.
High five.
Go team, go discipleship team. Thanks for joining us. Next week we'll be kind of back to normal. Like, hopefully, like, we'll be praying everything's back to normal and you don't have to see Whitney.
For a while.
Right, for a while, yes. But yeah, really glad to have you here. Glad to have you part of our church family.
Absolutely.
Be looking forward to next week where we continue talking about fact check and it's gonna be good. Yeah, just different perceptions of the church. Pastor, and we'll be back to talk about that. So until then, we'll go and be the church.